FARMVIEW with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanviaConnect.com.
Hello and welcome to FARMVIEW. Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor here with your weekly farming programme. Once again, I have a very busy show for you this week. Well, on this week's programme, I'll discuss the outcome of last week's Beef Task Force meeting, a very important meeting indeed, and also about the good news as McDonald's announced they're sticking with Irish beef supplies. I'll also have an update on this year's maize crop and discuss the big uptake of growers in Waterford, and also remind farmers and landowners that now is the time for hedge cutting and of their obligation to ensure that they don't pose a threat to people on public roads. And plus, as always, we'll have our farming calendar.
FARMVIEW with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanviaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, last week the Beef Task Force meetings resumed indeed with all the major players in the industry, farm organisations, meat processors, Department of Agriculture and Board B represented at the meeting. So to find out the outcome of the meeting, indeed also discuss the good news as McDonald's announced that they are sticking with Irish beef, we were joined by the market specialist from the Irish Farmers Journal, Phelim O'Neill. Phelim, welcome back to our programme.
Hello, Kieran.
Phelim, the Beef Task Force meeting at last are back up and running. Obviously a long break because of COVID, but what were the positives coming out of that meeting, or was it more a talking shop for all of the industry?
Well, I suppose, Kieran, the fact even if that was all that it is a positive thing in itself, because if we recall this time last year, things were coming to a head with the factory protests. Farming was very, very fragmented, and I suppose the image of farming in the eyes of wider consumers, particularly in the big urban centres, probably was moving towards the unsympathetic, to put it mildly. 2020 has been an exceptional year. We had the arrival of the pandemic, the immediate drop in prices, and everyone in an absolute nervous state about just where would they go. And then we discovered, actually, as people were confined to their homes, couldn't eat out to the extent that they would have been previously. We found that more of the agriculture produce was being bought through the butchers and through the supermarkets, and it actually led to a bit of a turnaround prices. So it has worked out not as bad as might have been expected. I think the big theme that's occupying farmer minds at the minute, the initiative by Board B and the government to pursue a branding for Irish beef, a PGI application as it's called. PGIs are something not probably that well known in Ireland, although actually one of the local products in your part of the world there, the Waterford Blah, has one, and other things like Irish whiskey, Irish cream liqueur would have PGIs. This is a European recognised branding system where a product has particular qualities that are associated with the area or with the region from which it comes. So you have different types of cheese. You have champagne, probably the most famous of all from the champagne area of France. The idea of this is that we could somehow maybe get Irish beef branded, Irish grass-fed beef branded, that would allow us to go out then and build over a period of time a brand that would hopefully create some value for farmers.
Is that going to take a while? Because really at the moment it's very much a long-term
There's no branding exercise that's an overnight success. But the important thing is all journeys have to start somewhere. And the difficulty with this journey is, and from last Friday's meeting, whenever Board B put the concept out to consultation there, they discovered, I think, they had 22 objections to it. And much of last Friday's meeting then was taken up by debating these various points. Most of the, if not all of the farm organisations are of a view that branding's a good idea, but there is very little agreement on what should be included in the brand. Should it include all types of beef from all types of cattle that's produced in Ireland, or should it be confined to suckler breeds only? Should young bulls be included or not included? These are the issues that I suppose are the sticking point. And the Minister basically took the position that they had asked people to go and reflect and come back with their proposals on it, and that's where it stands. So the situation, stalemate, I suppose, is the outcome of it, you might conclude, after the discussion last week.
As regards the actual Beef Task Force, as you say, it's important that they come together, all the farming organisations, you have Board B, Meat Industry Ireland, all the processors, department officials. How important is it? And obviously it's aspirational as regards the PGI, but as regards currently, we've Brexit coming down the track, we've the whole ongoing COVID. So from the beef sector point of view, and obviously we've had some outbreaks in beef plants as well, COVID outbreaks. So as regards the next few months, it's a crucial period for the industry in general in Ireland.
Absolutely. And there's another juggernaut there as well. The Common Agriculture Policy is likely to be finalised in the next number of weeks during the Germany holds the presidency of it from the 1st of July until the end of December, and they've made it very clear it will be their ambition to get this concluded, to get the CAP concluded in October. And at that stage then we go into producing this thing called a national plan, whereby the Irish government will be responsible for delivering the Common Agriculture Policy in Ireland, and farmers will have to try and shape the delivery of that in a way that delivers the most for farmers. Irish farming representation, I suppose it became fragmented with the move away from the direct support payments in the Common Agriculture Policy back in the earlier years of the century. That's what led to the development of the Hill Farmers Association, for example, and we have more recently then Beef Plan in different guises emerged into the scene. So we have a fragmentation of farmer views, and anything that can bring those together, because ultimately divided farmers are the weaker negotiating party in virtually all commercial engagements, because they're dealing with big processors in no matter what commodity that they produce. Right. And the more the farmers can operate together, come together, they may have different overall objectives, but the bottom line is farm organisations, you will find there will be a lot of common ground between them, but it tends to be the things that they divide on that gets the most publicity. Right. Forums like this are a good opportunity to at least allow farmers sharing their thinking, the different farm organisations to share their thinking, and hopefully in the process build common policies.
Finally, mentioning Brexit there, and obviously one overhanging business and indeed contract within the whole Brexit scenario is McDonald's. And good news as regards McDonald's have come out to say that they've no plans to stop buying beef from Ireland despite the concerns over the whole ongoing no-deal Brexit. So that's a good news for the beef industry, which is really on its knees at present for various reasons.
Yes, McDonald's is a very big customer of Irish beef. I do believe one time that they were a country that would be seen as Ireland's second biggest export market after the UK. Mm-hmm. So huge volume customer, mainly for the ground beef, four-quarter beef, take it from all ages of cattle. So they would have quite a broad specification. They would have very strict and demanding welfare standards in terms of residences, etc., but outside the broad range and specification of beef. Reassuring to hear their commitment to it, although we have to be careful, because if there is a no trade deal agreed between the European Union and the UK, the reality of life is that the price that Irish beef would be going into the UK market at would be such that it would make it simply prohibitive. It would almost double the cost of the beef that McDonald's buys from Irish factories. So that's something that has to be kept in mind. Of course, through the Dawn Meats Group would be a major manufacturer of burgers for McDonald's.
I was just going to say, yes, a huge customer of Dawn, yeah.
Yes, so local to yourselves. Very important there. And they would also have good links to supplying McDonald's throughout Central Europe as well. So very positive news to hear, but I would just add the little touch of a warning to it that the UK business that we would have would come under serious pressure, almost to the point of collapse, I think, if we don't see a deal sorted out in Brexit. So that's just one thing to keep in mind on the back of that good news story.
And also, I think McDonald's came out in the statement also as regards the outbreaks, that they're happy, outbreaks in meat plants, they're happy that the way the industry is handling it, that whole scenario in Ireland.
The reality is every walk of life has had to deal with COVID-19, and it's also a fact of life that is recognised. The industry that involves people working in close proximity together, a temperature-controlled environment, it seems to be particularly high risk. Recognition is there. I think all factories now in the country would have measures in place that are as comprehensive as they possibly can be. Okay. And whilst outbreaks do flare up from time to time, they have flared up in an awful lot of other areas as well. And if you go back 2 months, it was the meat factories that were probably the only issue in the COVID debate. Right now, the extent of the problem is across all of society, leading to lockdowns, Donegal and Dublin. So it's something that we're having to try and operate and coexist with until whatever time a vaccination is found that brings it under proper control.
Philip O'Neill, of course, market specialist at the Irish Farmers Journal. Of course, thanks for your update on the Beef Task Force meeting last week, and indeed great to see the Beef Task Force up and running, and also on the good news that McDonald's have decided to stick with Irish beef supplies, which is a good news story as well. Phelim, thanks for taking our call. We talk to you in the near future.
Thank you, Kieran. No problem at all.
Well, it's that time of year again. It's into the maize harvesting season, and once again in Waterford and across the county, and particularly down here in the southeast, maize is becoming a huge part of livestock farming, particularly dairying. Well, earlier in the week I got a chance to go out to Tommy Maloney's maize crop just in Duxpool, just outside Dungarvan, and to speak first of all with his advisor Brian Hiller, the man who actually started this whole maize campaign almost 30 years ago. Brian, early 90s, you could see potential for maize, particularly here in Waterford.
That's right, Kieran. Actually 28 years ago today almost, Tom here was harvesting a crop of maize. At that time, I suppose, in 1992, I became aware that that maize varieties had changed and that it was now there was more potential in growing maize at that time. New varieties had come on stream and that they were early maturing as well. So in 1992, in the spring of that year, I asked a number of farmers like Tom here, a lot of them actually were in the Dungarvan discussion group at the time, to actually grow a number of acres of maize and see for themselves would it
put their toe in the water.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it had been grown previously in the 70s and it had petered out again. But as I said, varieties had improved. And thankfully, people like Tom here took a chance and grew maize, and we haven't looked back since.
My longest memory is a big open day out in Tommy Maloney's in the Bordery, actually, and it was very novel at the time.
It was. I said, a lot of farmers interested in seeing how they would get on. So I said, it's October the 2nd, actually, 1992. We had a harvesting demo here, right? And we actually weighed the crop. Tom had a diet wagon. We were able to weigh a section of the fields here, and the yield was tremendous, way more than people would have expected.
Of course, most farmers and all farmers at that period was grass silage only. The advantage of including the likes of maize and fodder wheat, but in particular maize, huge advantage as regards animal performance and indeed mill solids as well.
Look, maize is an excellent feed. Cows are actually healthier on it. It's an excellent feed. It's a high dry matter, high energy feed, high energy coming from the start, right? So it's a great complement with grass silage, with good grass silage. And it has been fed in the springtime, early milk production, early calving, and also can be used as a supplement in the fall of the year.
Now, Tommy Maloney himself, of course, Tom, you're one of the first apostles to come on board with Brian back in 92. What's your memory of that first crop?
Well, I suppose with great anticipation. I was old enough to have seen some of the crops that were grown in the 70s, and they were very disappointing.
God, he had a reputation after that, didn't
it did, yeah. But we went with our agricultural advisor, and it turned out to be a wonderful success. And we're 28 years growing it now. We're always under polythene now, probably for the last 10 years.
Was that a real game changer, growing under plastic?
Completely. The polythene is your guarantee of a successful crop. Absolute guarantee. Yeah. But fertiliser programs and that are important as well. The crop can't be grown without.
Acreage, Tom, you started in 92 growing. What type of acreage do you grow now?
I was growing 24 acres because it was on an isolated block that I couldn't drive my cows to anymore. I couldn't cross the N25, and that was, for us, a big game changer. That was the year we brought a mixer wagon on board and an industrial loader. So
what acreage are you at now this year?
I'm at 32 acres, and the block of ground now is 3 miles from maybe 4 miles from the milking unit. So it's a wonderful use for the block.
As regards this year's crop, we're standing here in the crop. Is it all one variety?
All one variety. It's a pioneer variety called 8200, and it looks very well. We'll be cutting it in the next week, hopefully.
And compared to last year, how is this year's crop?
This is similar to last year. Like, we had a very successful crop again last year.
Yeah. And as regards the recent warm weather, was that a big help for the crop?
I think the last month has been a wonderful help to bring the crop to maturity. There's no doubt about it. It's a crop that loves plenty of sunshine.
The performance of your cows on the maize, do you think it was a game changer as well?
Yeah, we're very happy with it, and we're using it at the two ends of the year to shoulder in the spring and the autumn.
Right.
We've currently just started feeding it.
Is it dairy cows only, or do you
only
feed
dairy cows? No. It's far too valuable a crop to be.
Finally, of course, contractors play a huge part, and I think there's Kieran Cotter and the Fennels are involved with you.
Liam Fennel in Garnbane that will see the crop.
So you hope to get harvesting here next week?
We'll be in within a week here. Yeah. Kieran finished it, done and dusted.
Brian, final question to you here. We're here in a beautiful setting here in Duck's Pool, just on the edge of Abbeyside. As regards farmers looking at potentially getting involved in maize, is site key as regards putting it in the right place? Because I know in the past people had problems with site selection.
Site and location is number one, right? And good soil quality, good soil type obviously as well. Over the years, Kieran, I suppose initially people were growing maize without plastic, right? There's still a number of farmers that are growing maize without plastic, so the site is more important than ever then. And the other thing I suppose that's changed over the years is that many dairy farmers now, and I just deal with dairy farmers, is that they're getting maize grown on contract. They're getting a contractor to supply the maize, rather than growing the maize on their own land. It's delivered in by the contractor, right?
If they're with acreage,
that actually frees up land in as well for more.
And is that becoming more common where guys contract growing?
It is, it's gone more common. Contractors obviously are working generally very good type of land, and it frees up land at home for the dairy farmer that they can graze cows instead on that land.
So overall, as Tom said, really maize has become a game changer, indeed under plastic as well. So looking back on that 28 years ago, you're delighted you had that open day here and indeed started to promote what has become literally a revolution in the county.
Yeah, look, maize is becoming a firmly established crop and part of the dairy cow's diet. different times of the year. And look, it's also a very good crop to have maybe a small bit of it in reserve. Over the last number of years we've seen the extremes of drought and very wet weather, so it's a very safe crop. It'll hold well in a pit if it's well sealed.
Right.
And it's a great
feed value.
Great feed, but great crop to have in reserve. If you go short to feed.
Well, Brian Hillard, you're the Teagasc advisor that started all this off in 92 and one of the first men involved in the growing, Tommy Maloney. Tom, you're glad you made that big jump in 92.
It was a wonderful experience for us, and it's gone on to be invaluable now at this point, because the parts of the blocks of ground that we have are fragmented from the main block, and this helps us to support the cows on the grazing block.
Tommy Maloney, thanks for having us out here in that fabulous looking crop here in Duxpool, Dungarvan. And to Brian Hillard, your Teagasc advisor, lesson lads, well done. Hard to believe it's 28 years since this opened day here, and I remember it so well way back in 92. Thanks for talking to us, lads.
Thank you, Kieran.
Okay, thanks, Kieran.
Now, since our maize interview during the week, Brian Hillard of Teagasc was back on to say that some of the pioneering 15 farmers who grew maize back in 91 have since passed on, namely Liam Christopher, Dilly Ryan and Ned Phelan. And would you believe the actual event, the first maize open day, took place on Thursday, 3rd of October 1991, exactly 29 years ago on the farm of Tommy Maloney, the Burgery, Dungarvan.
FARMVIEW with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.
And you're very welcome back to part 2 of FARMVIEW. Now, before we discuss and remind farmers and landowners that now is the time for hedge cutting, let's have a look at some items from our farming calendar. Turning to March this Saturday, cattle and calf sale every Saturday morning at Waterford Ross Mart from 10 o'clock. And don't forget, the Waterford Ross Mart weekly wheeling sale will take place every Monday evening from 5:30. Dungarvan Mart, of course, cattle and calf sales every Monday at 11 o'clock. And don't forget the next wheeling sale, which are held fortnightly. The next wheeling sale at Dungarvan Mart will take place on Thursday next. And remember, all sales are now online at livestocklive.com. Farmer markets and country markets, top class, of course, fresh artisan product and indeed food available every week at markets right across the city and county. This Saturday, Waterford Farmers Market, John Roberts Square. Also on Saturday mornings, we've Fabley Farmers Market, now trading outdoors every Saturday morning in Stradbally. Sunday, there's more Farmers Market, Castle Avenue is more, running from 10 until 4. And don't forget, the Ardmore Farmers Market has finished up for this season. We look forward to it returning again in 2021. On Thursdays, it's Dungarvan Farmers Market, Grattan Square, Dungarvan from 9 until 2. While on Friday mornings, Dungarvan Country Markets, Causeway Tennis Club and Abbeyside every Friday from 9 till 1:30. And also on Friday mornings, Waterford Country Markets in St Olave's Hall from 9 until 1. Now, to show jumping, of course, the Beachfield Sport Horse and Ponies, their autumn show jumping and jump cross, that's proven to be very successful every Saturday morning from 10 until 1, with the finals down for decision on Saturday the 10th of October. So finals next week. We'll have more details on next week's programme.
FARMVIEW with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, as always at this time of year, landowners are reminded that now is the right time for hedge cutting. And to discuss this, we're joined from Waterford Council by their senior engineer for roads, Gabriel Hines. Gabriel, this time of year, of course, as always, it's very important that landowners take the opportunity to get their hedge cutting and to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's the position. Under the Roads Act, it's very clear. Landowners are responsible for their hedges and their trees. I suppose they're responsible to ensure that in relation to their hedges, they're not blocking sightlines, they're not coming out onto the road, they're not blocking visibility at junctions. And in particular, in relation to trees, in relation to overhanging trees, they need to ensure that those trees are not hanging down so that damaging mirrors and lorries are forcing lorries out into the centre of the road. So it's their responsibility, and it's very, very clear under the Act. You can cut from now September to the end of March. And this is now the time that farmers need to take, I suppose, examine their hedges and their trees and carry out the necessary actions.
Obviously, you mentioned March, so from March 1st to the 31st of August, because of biodiversity, obviously they're prohibited. Now is the period where you want to take action. Have you been in contact with some owners, or is it just a general request that you've out there?
Well, I suppose, first of all, it's a general request. Secondly, we have placed ads in the local newspapers just to notify landowners of their responsibility and the time period. And then we are sending out notices in areas where we have identified issues to be either with hedges or overhanging trees, or where we've got complaints, in particular from lorry drivers, in relation to overhanging branches damaging lorries and mirrors. So over the last, I suppose, fortnight now, letters are being issued and they will be continue to be issued.
As regards liability here, are the landowners responsible if an accident happens with a tree or branches from their farm?
In general, what the law would say is that under an act of God, the landowner would not be responsible if he wasn't aware there was an issue. So in a case where the landowner would have been given a notice, where we have identified issues in the ground, either with ditches, hedges, or in particular overhanging branches, in an event of an accident occurring there in the future, the judge may deem the landowner negligent in that he didn't carry out his duty, given that he was notified by the local authority. So yes, there is a liability there, and it could be a serious liability in that case where we've identified a tree or an area to be cut.
Obviously, with larger farm machinery and mill tankers and trucks on the road, it's even becoming more important.
Yeah, on a daily basis now I'm getting complaints in from bus drivers, lorry drivers, and in particular the big tankers are complaining that two issues. Number one, their mirrors have been damaged, but more importantly, they're being forced out from the into the middle of the road, and that is very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
So once again, what's your appeal to landowners who might be listening to us this week on the FARMVIEW programme?
First of all, I think it's very important that I acknowledge the good work that's been done out there. As you drive around, you see the hedges being cut and you see the trees being cut. I think 95% of landowners are in compliance, and I think we need to acknowledge that. But lads, there is a percentage that haven't complied with previous notices, and if they continue to non-comply, then we will be enforcing the Roads Act and we will be prosecuting those landowners through the courts.
I think you said a lot there, but a lot of the landowners are complying. You can see driving on the road, a lot of good work is happening, but more needs to be done.
More needs to be done. Essentially, more needs to be done. And not only just for safety, it's important for the road integrity as well, that if the road is open to drive faster, there's less chance of frost developing in that road then, because it's not wet. As well as that, it gets the sunshine earlier in the morning, so any ice that were there would be thaw out. So just from the maintenance point of view and from the noise point of view, it's important as well from the road integrity that hedges are cut and the overhanging trees are cut.
But good to hear there's been good implementation. Let's just repeat once again, landowners being reminded now is the time for hedge cutting. Gabriel Hines, Senior Engineer of Roads at Waterford Council. Gabriel, thanks for that update, and I'm sure the farmers, as always, particularly here in County Waterford, will take heed and take action as soon as possible.
Thanks very much, Kieran, and thanks for the opportunity of allowing us to get our message out there.
But before we go on a racing front, what a week again for Waterford. Connections cross-channel. Great to see young Dungarvan jock Sean Houlihan back in the winners' enclosure at Uttoxeter. While back home, we wins for Knockeen. Butlerstown trainer Henry de Bromwell, who's on some run at present, while Henry saddled winners at Listowel, Dundalk, as well as a nice double at Roscommon. Dungarvan trainer John Queally followed up his opening winner at Listowel Festival with his second winner of the week at the Kerry venue for Kilgobnet owner breeder Michael Ryan. Indeed, Michael followed up with yet another winner at Punchestown, where Lisfennel Dungarvan trainer, the evergreen John Kiley, saddled yet another fine winner there as well. So now, all in all, a great week all round for local Waterford connections. So that's my lot for this week's programme. My thanks to Sean and Ollie for all their help in putting the programme together. So from myself, Kieran O'Connor, it's goodbye for now. Stay safe, keep up the protocol, and hopefully I'll have your company again same time next week.
FARMVIEW with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.